Hello, everybody. Welcome back to It's Called Football. We have finally reached the end of the last international break of 2023, and we now can wait a whole 4 months until the next scheduled international set of matches. So strap in, get ready, because club football is coming back aplenty now, especially in the month of December. But before we hit December, we have Matchday 13 in the Premier League to bring you. We waste no time getting into the thick of the action. Manchester City versus Liverpool is the early kickoff match on Saturday. These two teams have been heavyweights in the Premier League for the bulk of the last 6 seasons, and between the two have won every league title over the last 6 seasons as well. That is a friendly way of saying that Manchester City has been ultimately pipping Liverpool to most of those titles, just barely, it must be said. And Liverpool did storm their way to one of those Premier League titles during the year when COVID first hit. It's bound to be an electric match. It always is when those two teams meet, and I'm expecting nothing less this time. We then see a few matches take place at the same time on Saturday after the Man City Liverpool game. Burnley will host West Ham United. Luton will host Crystal Palace. Newcastle then hosts Chelsea and is sure to be another great matchup. And Nottingham Forest will host Brighton. Those are not the end of the Saturday games. We also see another match take place along with the few that happen after Man City versus Liverpool. Sheffield United will play Bournemouth at the same time as the Burnley match, Luton, Newcastle, and Nottingham Forest matches. And then the late kickoff on Saturday is Brentford hosting Arsenal. And we'll talk a bit more about why there's an interesting story developing in that game or ahead of that game, really. Sunday then sees two fixtures. Tottenham Hotspur hosts Aston Villa, while Everton welcome Manchester United to town. That game is also going to be, I think, a really fiery encounter. Not necessarily because of rivalry between Everton and United, but because of off the pitch instances that have happened during this international break that have affected one of the teams. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. And then the final fixture of Matchday 13 in the Premier League sees Fulham hosting Wolves. And we'll kind of get into the predictions of each of these games in a little bit. Just a reminder as to how the table looks. It has been 2 weeks after all since we last discussed it. Manchester City are leading the table by a point, and they kick off the weekend by facing second place Liverpool, who are only a point behind them and not that far behind on goal difference. For City, obviously, any dropped points would mean that they could be overtaken. If City were to lose the game, then Liverpool will leapfrog them because obviously they would beat them. If City lose, it would also give Arsenal and Tottenham the opportunity to jump ahead of Manchester City. So if this weekend doesn't quite go right for City, they could finish as low as fourth by the end of this week, or by the end of this weekend. That being said, even a draw for Man City is not necessarily the ideal result because although that would keep Liverpool below City, it would mean that Arsenal can still go above Manchester City if Arsenal win their match at Brentford. Tottenham in that situation would only be able to finish level this weekend on points with Man City, but they would be behind them on goal difference if Tottenham were to win and the City Liverpool match ends in a draw. Aston Villa, who have been just quietly going about their business, are sitting right there in fifth place. And given that they're facing Spurs, there's lots of incentive for Villa to give everything they can into this game. Remember as well that Tottenham have a few injury concerns. They still have one suspension, I believe, that they're dealing with in their defense. And they have lost their last two matches in a row in the league. to Chelsea, and then the most recent match as well in Matchday 12. But for Aston Villa, there's huge motivation here because the points gap between them and second place is only 3 points, meaning if Aston Villa win their game and Liverpool and Arsenal drop points or both lose really, then Villa could be finishing this weekend as high as second place. So there is lots of motivation there for them. Manchester United, Newcastle, Brighton, West Ham, and Chelsea make up the other half of the top 10 after last round's matches. Now, the bottom half of the table, actually, since match day 12 has ended, there has been movement in the bottom half of the table, and it's part of what we're going to discuss in the big stories for our look ahead to this match day. Brentford, Wolves, and Palace make up the first three spots in the bottom half of the table. It was Everton sitting in 14th on 14 points, and you'll see now that there's an asterisk beside them, and that they are now sitting only at 4 points. And that's because there was an incident several months ago in last season where Everton were accused uh, of not complying with the financial regulations that the league had established. Essentially, the league had said that you're only allowed to incur losses up to 105 million pounds across a certain time period. And during that time period, Everton had fallen into losses of just a bit more than that. We say a bit, we're talking in the millions of pounds here, but they were 20, almost 20 million pounds greater in losses than they were allowed to. And their case had been reviewed since, I believe, February or so when this first came up, and Everton were fully compliant in providing the Premier League with all the information they needed. And yet, this one charge alone, the league and the commission that was handling the case deemed that the offence was worth a 10-point deduction. Now, it's weirdly ironic in a way. Um, Not the points deducted, but the fact that Everton's deduction now leaves them sitting just one spot above last place in the league. It's a testament in some way to how well Everton actually have played this year so far, that they had enough points in the bank that even this doesn't completely destroy their hopes of staying up in the league. The fact that they're sitting only on 4 points is bad, of course, now with the points deduction, but they're helped a little bit by the fact that the teams that were in the bottom four, Burnley, Sheffield United, Luton Town, and Bournemouth, have been mostly poor enough that they haven't picked up that many points. And so Everton really could be out of the bottom three again if they manage to get a win this weekend. Um, so it's a testament to how good Everton actually have been this year. I know six losses isn't great, but you know what I mean. They haven't been amazing, but they have picked up enough points in the early stages that they had this safety net a little bit. And the three teams, especially that were promoted up from the Championship this season to the Premier League, have been so poor and accumulated so few points between them and individually that Everton are still well within their means to still be able to pull out of this scrap at the bottom of the table. Um, I do think that the punishment was a little harsh on them, but as a result of Everton's points deduction, they are now dropping down to 19th. Their goal difference at the moment keeping them above Burnley, while five teams that were below Everton have now obviously all moved up a spot going into the weekend. We have quite a few matches actually that we think you should check out this weekend if you have the time and if you're able to and are interested, of course. The first one is the big one, Man City against Liverpool. First match of the weekend. We go straight into the thick of the action. Man City have won five out of the last six league titles and obviously won three trophies last season. Liverpool have won some trophies over the last few years, but ultimately in the league have mostly just fallen short to Man City. Um, their matches between each other are always exciting, always interesting to watch. They're great tactical battles to witness, and I'm definitely going to be tuning in just to watch the spectacle unfold itself because I think it's always amazing. It never lets you down. But we highly recommend it if you're able to wake up early enough in North America. Um, Tune into this one because I don't think it will let you down. Match number two that we recommend happens just after Man City versus Liverpool is over. It's one of the simultaneous games right after that. Newcastle taking on Chelsea. Newcastle have generally been in good form and have been high scorers, but they did surprisingly lose their matchday 12 fixture away to Bournemouth. Chelsea, on the other hand, should be going into this game full of confidence, having scored 4 goals against Man City right before the international break in that thrilling 4-4 draw. So Chelsea know they can score goals, they know that they can be a threat, and they know they can take on the best teams. Given the fact that they actually have managed to take points off Man City and Arsenal and Liverpool, the current top three sides in the league. This one is a little different for Chelsea because unlike those 3 games with those 3 opponents, this is not a game that Chelsea is at home for. They're traveling away. So it will be a test of their character. But Newcastle themselves are in a bit of a pickle in terms of squad availability that we'll talk about a little bit further. And match number three, like we said, Everton versus Manchester United is not necessarily a local rivalry. It's not even a historical rivalry. However, their games do usually serve up a very high level of entertainment. And Everton at the moment are still stinging a little bit from this 10-point deduction, which the club staff, management, players, fans all are up in arms about it. They think it's way too harsh. They accept that the club was probably in the wrong, but they do feel the punishment is too harsh, given that there's other clubs in the league currently accused of more charges and more breaches of the codes that they have to abide by, um, and have a lot more of these charges. So they've accumulated more charges and more serious charges, and Everton feel like their punishment is unnecessarily tough on them right now. As a result, I'm sure Everton's ground, Goodison Park, is going to be absolutely bouncing. Every fan there that's an Everton fan is going to be making sure that they're fully behind the team and voicing their support the entire match. And you never know, it could spur Everton into a fantastic performance. It remains to be seen. It would be nice to see that level of unity at Everton. So the big stories, I suppose there's only one logical starting point really here. Um, The big one is Everton's situation right now. We spoke a few weeks ago in a match preview about how we felt bad for Everton and our condolences to them because this was the rumored punishment that was coming. At that time, it hadn't been official. It was just a speculation that they were going to get a points deduction. And of course, the bad news some weeks ago was that their chairman had passed away. This now obviously is now piling on the misery on Everton. And this is the statement that they released after the punishment was officially uh, made public. The most interesting part to me about this is the fourth paragraph, the penultimate one. The club will also monitor with great interest the decisions made in any other cases concerning the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules. This is specifically referring to what I mentioned a little earlier. Clubs in question here are Chelsea and Manchester City, who are both being investigated for various discrepancies in their behavior, um, potential illegal activity, bribery charges, um, financial bribery to their staff and players, and so on. There's a lot that Man City and Chelsea have been accused of. City have been accused of it They have 115 alleged charges against them over about a decade or so's worth, um, while Chelsea self-reported uh, some information from within their club under their previous ownership, which they felt wasn't right, and they're obviously being investigated into it as well. A lot of it involves breaches of finance and the financial rules laid out in the league. And I think Everton's statement there is very pointed. It's highlighted not just to the Premier League, but to every club, um, that there's now a spotlight on how those cases are handled. Because if Everton is dealt a 10-point deduction and City and Chelsea get off scot-free, then it points towards favoritism, potentially corruption within the officials that oversee everything that happens in the Premier League and to all of its clubs. There's a lot here to eagerly wait and see how it unravels. And although it's off the pitch stuff, it could really affect the other clubs in question that are currently facing charges. For example, if one charge for Everton, where they were helpful in getting the league all the information they needed, still resulted in a 10-point deduction, what should be the punishment for Manchester City, who have tried to fight and stop the Premier League at every step of the way while they investigate the 115 charges against them. And of course, their City are denying it. They're making it difficult for the league to unearth any facts. Um, no, I mean, based on that logic, there's possibility in theory, I suppose, that they could be deducted enough points to be expelled from the league. The same could happen to Chelsea if their charges are deemed serious enough as well. Personally, I doubt anything like that will happen, because Chelsea and Man City are so good for the Premier League brand. I do think that they are going to get favorable treatment. Unfortunately, it's not the way it should be in a fair world. And I do feel really bad for Everton fans in what they're having to go through right now. But as we get back into the on the pitch stuff, there is almost no better match for entertainment in the Premier League than Manchester City against Liverpool, Pep Guardiola against Jurgen Klopp, the managers, and of course you have star players defensively and on the attacking end on both sides. Liverpool's centre back and now captain Virgil van Dijk has been one of the top players in the Premier League for the last few years. One could argue that he's one of the best central defenders the league has ever seen. And in attack, Mohamed Salah on right wing for Liverpool is also a player that we could argue is one of the top players ever seen in the league, especially in his position. But City have players of their own that they could claim to be the best in their position right now and perhaps in the league's history. Although they're missing Kevin De Bruyne, their star creator, they do have Erling Haaland, prolific goal scorer, obviously, still only 22, 23 years old. And they have plenty of players across the pitch that have the quality to get City a result in this match. It's never easy between these two teams. They have to fight tooth and nail for any result. Um, it should be amazing to watch. It really should be fantastic. Brentford and Arsenal actually serves up an interesting story. The goalkeeping saga at Arsenal has been going on ever since they announced the loan signing of David Raya from Brentford. And there was a lot of scrutiny around David Raya because, in a lot of people's eyes, Aaron Ramsdale, who had been the starting choice keeper for the last couple of years now at Arsenal, people didn't feel like Ramsdale had done enough to be displaced as the starting choice goalkeeper. Um, and yet David Raya, just a couple of weeks after joining the club, has basically made that number one spot his own. He's been playing there, and people feel that maybe Raya hasn't earned it, that he doesn't necessarily look obviously more of an upgrade on Ramsdale. I'm not really sure one way or the other whether there's an argument here. I think since Raya's come in, our results have been good for the most part. I don't think he has particularly been responsible for letting in any poor goals. And yet we do look a lot more confident, I think. when we're in possession, when Arsenal are in possession with Raya as the goalkeeper behind the defense, it feels like the defense are more confident, comfortable playing the ball around and passing it around at the back, even though it's theoretically a dangerous place. The story here is that because David Raya is technically still a Brentford contracted player and is only on loan to Arsenal, he's ineligible to play in this match against Brentford, which means Aaron Ramsdale should be starting this match. Now, I think if Ramsdale wants to stake a claim to getting back that starting goalkeeper spot as his own, his performance on Saturday needs to be honestly the best of his career ever. Um, at the moment, he's fallen behind Raya in the pecking order, and the only way he gets that spot back is to prove it on the pitch. He is being gift wrapped an opportunity here because Raya cannot play by the league's rules, which means Ramsdale should be starting, barring any sort of an injury. He should be starting this match, and if he plays it well enough, he may be in between the goalposts for a few games. But he now has to prove to manager Mikel Arteta that he deserves to be that starting keeper, and there's no better time for him to try and do it. Newcastle versus Chelsea is going to be interesting. In my eyes, it's always quite fun. This is the original um, corruption club of the league, the original money club in Chelsea, who rose to fame only when money started being funneled in without any limit, um, almost 2 decades ago. And Newcastle are the most recent ones, who obviously have been bought by a Saudi state fund, and they have the ability to have limitless funds as well. There's a little more controversy that's taken place in the Premier League over the international break, which concerns Newcastle in a way, but we will talk about that at another time. Still, this fixture on the pitch should be a very good one. Both teams have quality, both teams have reason to be confident going into the game, and Newcastle obviously have a point to prove after losing their last game. Chelsea will be chomping at the bit because their momentum was halted after that good result against City. So, what do we think is going to happen in this game? Well, Man City Liverpool is always a little bit difficult to predict. I do think Man City are not necessarily as dominant in all areas as they have been in the previous years, whereas Liverpool look to have recovered from last season's poor performances and they look to be kind of ready for a title charge again. Um, I'm going to go here with 2-2. I think City aren't quite showing enough for me to confidently say they will win this game. They may still, but I'm not sure that they will this time. I think after an international break, it's always tough to get your momentum back up right away. And I think Liverpool's players over the international break have been hitting good form. Almost all of their attacking players have been scoring goals for fun for their countries, so they will be coming in good spirits, in good form, and full of confidence. Burnley and West Ham, while I think Burnley um, can be okay on their day, they have lost 6 home games in a row, which is an unwanted record that they now hold. This is another home match, but I think West Ham just have so much more quality right now in their squad. And I think this one should be fairly routine for West Ham, although I would expect Burnley to score a goal at home. If nothing else, just provide that for their fans. Luton versus Crystal Palace is a tough one as well. Luton have shown that at home they're quite dogged and they don't let in many goals. They even managed to hold Liverpool to a draw. Um, that being said, I do think Palace, again, they have quality and they've got players that are coming back from injury. I think Palace should have too much, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to them. Newcastle and Chelsea is a little bit difficult to predict. On paper, you would probably say Newcastle are in better general form, but the problem is that Newcastle also have about 13 of their players missing because of injury right now. So their team is going to be nowhere near their first choice, either in defense or attack. And Chelsea, on the flip side, I'm not aware that they have any major injury concerns that we didn't already know of beforehand. Um, I was originally going to say this might be a Chelsea win, but Newcastle's atmosphere in their home ground, St. James Park, is second to none in the league, and I think that alone could sometimes be enough for the team to grind out a result, which is what I think is going to happen here. So I'm going for a 1-1 draw there. Brighton, I believe, are the only side this season in the league who have scored and conceded in every one of their first 12 matches this season. I don't see that changing, but I do think Brighton have more in their locker than Forest do. And so I'm going to go with a narrow Brighton win here by 2 goals to 1. Sheffield United have shown that they can get results. They do have their first win on the board. They managed to get a draw last week as well. Um, but Bournemouth are coming off the back of a huge morale boosting victory against Newcastle last time before the international break, and I think they will carry that a little bit better than Sheffield United will. So I'm going for 2-0 to Bournemouth in this game. Brentford and Arsenal's tough. Brentford at home is one of the most difficult opponents to face in the league. And Arsenal's last away game was their first defeat of the season in the league, which was to Newcastle. Now, albeit in contentious circumstances, Arsenal need to focus and make sure that they don't lose a second away game in a row. That hasn't happened for about 18 months now. They will be eager to make sure that doesn't happen here. I think if Arsenal play as well as they've shown at times that they can, they should win. I'm going to go and stick my neck out here and say a 2-1 Arsenal win. Spurs and Villa, although Spurs do have a lot of injuries, I think the players they still do have available are more than enough to cause problems. Now, Villa do have players that can cause issues as well. And I do think Villa will score, but I think at the end of the day, Tottenham at home have been confident, have played well, and they really need to turn around their run of results at the moment with the two back-to-back defeats in the league. And so I'm going to say Spurs to win this 2-1. Everton and Manchester United. Now, United have the better players on paper. Everton have a point to make and a point to prove right now. Um, at the end of the day, I think the poetic justice here would be that Everton get a win in this game to immediately kind of send a message to the other clubs in the league and to the league itself that, you know what, do what you want to us. We're not going down. We are going to keep fighting on the pitch and we're going to keep fighting you off the pitch. And I hope for Everton that that does happen. But I think in this game, United have a little too much. And barring any freak injuries or freak goals like that, I think United should be winning this one. And I'm going to go with 2-1 to them. And then Fulham and Wolves. Fulham have struggled for form all season. They've been good 1 or 2 weeks in a row and then abysmal for longer. Wolves in general have turned out more good performances than bad, and the only reason Wolves aren't higher in the table is because they've had some really poor refereeing decisions go against them. I think Wolves will take this one, and I think they will win this one 3-0, even though they're away. This will be an interesting match for Fulham's striker right now, Raul Jimenez, of Mexican origin. He used to play for Wolves and then transferred or was kind of sold to Fulham this past summer. This is kind of his personal derby, I suppose you can say, because he will want to make a point for his new club. But the problem is the players he's surrounded with just aren't doing it on a regular basis. I think that is where we are going to leave you for today. Um, the action starts right away, so we do recommend that you try to tune in for as much as you can out of match day 13. But take care. Hope you're all well. Hope you've managed to survive the boredom of the international break. And we will talk to you soon once the matches are complete for match day 13. In the meantime, take care, stay safe, drop a like, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this, please, and share with other people. We do appreciate the support. And remember, it's called football.